Hi guys, I wanted to do another lit chat about a couple books I've been reading, so I'm going to be reviewing a couple books. Make sure to follow me on Goodreads. I'll post the link below if you want to keep up to date with whatever books I'm reading currently. I have been reading so much since getting a Kindle, and I've been reading books I have just not been able to put down. Before I launch into it, no, I'm not naked, I'm wearing a tube top, so. And there's a couple of really good ones that I've read recently that I have to share with you guys. So the first one is called Divergent, and it's written by Veronica Roth, and the book Divergent is awesome. I love this book. It's a dystopian, futuristic novel, like it's set in the future. It isn't really explained what happens, like it's kind of a post-apocalyptic genre. It takes place in Chicago. The whole society has been split into 5 different factions, and each faction, they decide, I think when you're 16 years old, you have to make a decision on which faction that you belong to, and each faction kind of has like a very different way of living, so it kind of determines your whole future depending on whatever ones you choose. The first faction is Candor, which is the honest, Abnegation, which is the selfless, Dauntless, which is the brave, Amity, which is the peaceful, and Erudite, which are the intelligent. So basically, the story revolves around the main character Beatrice, and on her 16th birthday or whatever, whenever she turns 16, she is forced to make a decision on which faction she wants to belong to for the rest of her life. And she is actually part of Abnegation. She basically decides to switch factions. So she chooses the faction Dauntless, which is the faction that's dedicated towards like bravery and heroism, and she basically gives up her old life to become a part of this faction. And the whole first part of the book is her switch over to this new faction, the Dauntless, and how she has to undergo like a very, very tough training at the beginning, because not all the people who want to go into this new faction are going to be accepted. So there's kind of like a very tough training period at the beginning. So it's a really big like change for her. So she has like a very like hard initiation period, and she also has to like fight against other other trainees who want to become part of the Dauntless group. The story also kind of revolves around Beatrice and her kind of like, she has a secret that is kind of, you know, approached more and more in the book, and this secret is something that's it could be almost life-threatening if other people found the secret out. It's a really, really good book. I really loved it. It has a very climactic ending, like there's like a big thing that happens at the end, and it was a complete page turner. I could not put this book down. I think this is actually the debut from the author Veronica Roth, and I think it's supposed to be made into a trilogy, so there's going to be a continuation, because the story does kind of end, like the main plot does get resolved, like there is a resolution to the story, but there is also like a cliffhanger ending, so you know that there is going to be a second novel. I highly, highly recommend this book. If you are someone who read The Hunger Games and you really enjoyed that, I think that this book, Divergent, would be totally up your alley, and I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, so the next book that I wanted to quickly talk about is Poison Study, and I finished this today actually. So basically it's a fantasy fiction, so it's yeah, it's a fantasy world, so high fantasy. Basically the story starts out with the main character, our protagonist, who is named Yelena, and she is put in this dungeon basically and is waiting her execution because she murdered somebody. And then on the day that she's supposed to be executed, she is offered the role of being the food taster for the commander-in-chief of this big castle where she's like imprisoned. She has to taste all the food that the commander is going to eat, because they think that somebody's trying to poison him. So she decides to take up the chance, even though it does pose a huge risk on her life, because each time she's testing and tasting the food of the commander, there is a possibility that she might be poisoned if she does not recognize the poison. And she's taken under the wing of Valak, and he is, I think he's one of the other like army, he's not a commander, but he's like a chief of security, and he takes her under his wing and decides to train her really well so that she can recognize poisons by just, you know, smells and like the taste before swallowing. The premise sounds kind of strange, like, I don't know, it seems like a little bit of a strange plot, but basically as she works as the food taster within this big castle, she finds out that there's this whole like intrigue, like court intrigue, to you know, to destroy the commander and stuff, and she realizes that inside the castles there's like spies and stuff, and they are plotting against the commander because she realizes that there's something else going on outside the castle. And like she also kind of learns that outside the realm where she lives, like in the south, there are magicians. So she learns a little bit more about magic and stuff as well, and you know, she comes in contact with other magicians. Basically it's a really interesting story. Like, it's a fantasy story, and I enjoyed it. It's probably not like completely original. Like, it wasn't a book where I was like, wow, I've never read a book like this before, but I still enjoyed it. So it is a trilogy again, and all the 3 books have been released. The second book is Magic Study, and the last one is Fire Study. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be reading all 3. I might pick up the second one just because I did enjoy the last one. It was a fun, like, fantasy tale, and I enjoyed the characters, and I really liked the plot. Like, it was a very intricate plot. I feel like the author could have maybe spent a bit more time on the actual world building, because I still, at the end of the book, I had a very, very elementary understanding of what this kingdom actually looked like, and you know, who was the king and who are the major players outside of the castle. Like, I really had no idea about that. The author didn't really spend too much time on the world building, which is so important for fantasy books. The last book I very quickly wanted to talk about is this one, which I read also, and it's The Iron King by Julie Kagawa, and this is again like a series. It's called the Iron Fae series, and I really did not enjoy this book at all. I won't go too much into the plot details. It's basically another fantasy tale where the main protagonist goes into like a fairy, like a world of fairies, and there's a whole kind of quest she has to go on. I felt it was very young. Like, I just felt it was, you know, the characters were completely flat and hollow. The characters were not well developed, especially there was a love story between the main character of Megan, her name is, and Prince Ash, and their love story was not believable at all. And yeah, I thought this was just a really silly, very formulaic fantasy story that really wasn't original at all. You can keep up with me on Goodreads, I'll link it below, and because I kind of do little reviews of pretty much every book I read, and if I don't enjoy them, I don't finish them, I just go on to the next book, because I just think it's, you know, there's so many good books out there, and why waste your time on reading books that you don't really enjoy? Okay, so that's it for LitChat. If you're interested in any of the books that I have, you know, talked about, I will link them on Goodreads as well if you're interested. And yeah, that's it. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.